Story 1. Lunch meetings specifically with salaried employees. If your lunch is built into your schedule and you are not paid for it, you should not have a mandatory meeting during that time. Story 2. I know many hate it, but my dad smacks his lips like it's his job at the table whenever I go over and we eat together. It bothers me so much, but I'm not sure if I should even tell him or not. Story 3. Having things explained to me that I already know and having people tell me things they've already asked or told me to do drives me insane. It drives me up the wall. Story 4. Teasing people about their hobbies or interests. Who cares if people write fan fiction, go fishing, build Warhammer models, or play games all day and night? I've met a lot of people who have strong emotions about what others do with their time. Edit. To clarify, I don't do the hobbies I mentioned. They are just examples. Story 5. People's invisible struggle in a conversation to talk about themselves. It's like watching a strained tennis match back and forth, and in the end, neither of them really cares about what the other is saying. They are just thinking about what to say next. And it's so normalized. I see it everywhere. It drives me absolutely nuts. Whenever I'm in a conversation with someone and I can just see that they aren't really interested in anything I say, that it's just a means to talk about themselves, then I just give up. I don't fight them for it. If they aren't interested in listening to a thing I'm saying, then why should I bother? I let them talk it out, responding where it's necessary, and then part ways. Story 6. Lengthy automated phone tree messages before listing the press number for option choices, during the options, and before being able to select operator, and so on. Story 7. People on their phones are oblivious to their surroundings. It's selfish to expect everyone else to avoid running into you because you stopped on the stairs, in the middle of a sidewalk, or elsewhere in people's way. Step out of our way, then check your phone. At a stoplight, pay attention to the light, especially if you're at a turn arrow. What you're looking at on your phone is none of our business, which also means your business shouldn't affect us. Yet it does when we have to dodge you, wait for you to move, or hear your speaker nonsense. Story 8. When people talk constantly and the majority of what they say is just repeating, rephrasing, or unnecessarily explaining themselves, adding nothing to the conversation. Story 9. Being late. If we agreed on a time, just be there on time. I can understand if it's traffic or whatever, but if you're late because you just didn't leave the house early enough, that's annoying to me. It doesn't annoy others as much, apparently. Story 10. Giving people a hard time for their height is so normalized. Giving someone grief for something they can't control is really cruel, while at the same time demonizing anyone who shames people for their weight. Story 11. When people poorly cloak requests, "Hey, do you want to task for me?" Chances are, no, I do not want to do task. I may do it because I like or respect you, but let's not beat around the bush. It's probably unpleasant or inconvenient. Story 12. Music played on mainstream stations features the same 5 songs repeatedly. I will never forget when Yeah by Usher was released. All the radio stations absolutely overplayed that song. Whenever I hear it now, I have an initial feeling of rage. Story 13. People living in the same house as me use my pillows as if they own them. It pisses me off because I consider my pillows my personal items, and I am a hygiene freak. Story 14. Calling someone quiet. It's not offensive, but it sure feels like it when someone calls you that. They don't know my story. They don't know what I'm like outside of the place they see me. Story 15. People offering me their expert advice unsolicited. I don't need help playing pool, video games, or with my relationship. Let me enjoy life. Go away. Story 16. Talking loudly or stomping around the apartment. Your floor is my ceiling, so don't get offended when I politely tell you to be quiet. Story 17. Treating friends as placeholders to fight off loneliness until you get a relationship, then completely dropping out of your friends' lives or making it a requirement that every interaction you have with them is accompanied by your significant other. Now, before everybody jumps on me with the "but," of course, your relationship dynamics with your friends aren't going to be the same once you start dating again. It's fully reasonable to spend most of your time with your partner if you're trying to balance it between work, family, or kids. So, It's completely reasonable if you spend 75% of your time with your partner, 20% handling other responsibilities, and 5% of your time with your friends. But when you decide, I have my soulmate, I don't need anyone else, I find that to be a little craven and cowardly, because you know you'll come crawling back to them if this relationship doesn't work out. If you weren't willing to invest time and effort into maintaining a relationship with your friends once you found the upgrade, then why are they so important now that the partner you thought you had is gone? If it was that good, you'd probably be completely uninterested in ever having friendships again, because once you've tasted having everything, else is going to taste like hell. But you don't. You come back to them because you're lonely, which I find corny. But maybe this is just what happens when you don't come from a close family. You tend to treat your friends more like family, but you forget that other people don't have that same view. Full disclosure. My best friend, who was like a sister, ghosted me almost a year ago with no explanation. I have to assume it's because her girlfriend felt threatened or jealous, so I'm a little bitter over friend and romantic partner dynamics. Story 18. When people interrupt me while I'm busy with something mentally intense, like coding, doing university work, or watching lectures. Like, imagine if you were halfway through cooking dinner and someone turned the stove off. I don't mind stopping, but if I say give me a minute so I can finish off whatever I was up to, then give me a minute. Story 19. Mothers walking their entire successive lineage of offspring in the middle of the road, usually accompanied by a Starbucks latte in the stroller's cup holder and a phone in their hand, gaze fixed upon the phone, totally unaware they have meandered into the place we as a society collectively decide to designate for our cars, which are very heavy and often fast-moving boulders perfectly capable of ending a family line. But I'm not a parent, so I'm apparently not allowed to tell actual parents whenever they're being moronic. Story 20. I really dislike small talk. No, boss, I don't care what you did last weekend. But tomorrow's Monday, which means the small talk is upon me. Send help. Story 21. Nothing irritates me more than people using terms to appear smart or mentioning names to show off how well-connected they are. This fakery drives me nuts. Story 22. People who brag about how much they can drink and pressure others into drinking when they don't want to. That behavior is so normalized among young people, especially men, that you don't realize how toxic it can be. Story 23. Maybe I'm the only one, but I really dislike bodybuilding.com. All my workout buddies praise that site when it comes to useful information on form and what products to buy. Literally, I just wanted to change my protein powder to something that suits my needs. The message boards are basically a bunch of guys who insult each other and make fun of other people's personal records. I hate to use the term toxic masculinity to define a group of people, but that site is the worst example of it. Many of them sound like guys who peaked as the captain of their high school lacrosse team and haven't stopped talking about it since. Story 24. Chewing and eating with your mouth open. I know there is a condition where people are overly sensitive to it. I might have that, but I think it's more because I was taught table manners as a child. To me, it's the ultimate sign that you either don't care about other people or come from a family of disrespectful people. In the workplace, the number one way to be excluded from all career progression opportunities is to chew with your mouth open. Story 25. People, I am just going to go straight for it. I thought I was a people person. I gave it a good long try. Turns out I do not like people at all. I barely tolerate myself. My wife and kid are pretty cool, though. Story 26. Gossiping. I have both male and female friends, and it's driving me crazy how much they talk about others behind their backs. Then I understand that some of them talk about me behind my back as well, and it makes me insecure in a way. If something is wrong, tell me to my face. Maybe I won't like it, but at least I'll know there is a problem. Story 27. Throwing garbage on the ground. Letting your dog defecate on the ground and leaving it there. Playing loud music in public with headphones. Walking to your left when everyone else walks to the right. Slow walkers. People who stop in the middle of the sidewalk. People who pull out in front of you and drive 5 miles per hour under the speed limit. People who wear shoes indoors. People who stomp when they walk. Basically, pretty much anything anyone does is annoying because they don't consider other people. Story 28. Vertical videos. My personal crusade against them is all but lost now. but I will fight until my last breath against lazy individuals who can't figure out how to turn their phones 90 degrees. Story 29. Those movie producers who didn't count how many bullets the actor is firing from a pistol, and no one else cares about that, but when I see an actor fire like 57 bullets from a six-shooter, I'm having a stroke. It hits the spot, though. Story 30. Being sober and talking to people who have had a few drinks is challenging. We're not on the same level. Even worse is trying to talk to someone who's using cocaine. There's no way I can have the same amount of enthusiasm as you about my 600-pound life at 4 a.m. Story 31. When people are gold diggers and generally just use someone for their money without actually caring for the person, it bothers me. It also really upsets me when other people condone that type of behavior, especially when it's talk show hosts. This makes people think it's normal behavior when it's just one of the worst things you can do to a person. Story 32. Wasting food. Growing up hungry and savoring every scrap, it upsets me to see people let good food go to waste. Especially meat. An animal died because you wanted to eat it, so the least you could do is eat it all. I get it if you get full, but there's always leftovers. Honestly, if you didn't grow up poor or learn to be appreciative of food, you won't understand. That's fine, you will probably live longer from eating less, but I dislike that attitude. Health is also an exception. If you have health complications around food, that's different. I have inflammatory bowel disease, so I understand, but I do what I must when necessary. Yes, I may die early. It's not so much about the food itself, but being someone who cooks often and understands the labor that goes into making food, I appreciate it more because it's hard work. The least I can do to show appreciation is eat all of it. It's not like I go out to eat every day, and I have a big appetite, trained from birth, so it just goes down. Story 33. Saying you have a legitimate condition like post-traumatic stress disorder or attention deficit hyperactivity disorder when you're neurotypical. No, you are not so attention deficit hyperactivity disorder today, or any day, because you don't have it. People tossing terms like these around makes it difficult for us to be taken seriously. Story 34. People whistling or singing in public. I do not know what it is, I just find it really rude or annoying. Like the person doing it cannot stand silence, or maybe it is like a nervous tic. People that sing in public, from my experience, usually sound really awful, but that does not stop them from doing it. It is not the worst thing, but it does get on my nerves for whatever reason. Story 35. People assume that someone is an introvert just because they may not be as outgoing as everyone or vice versa. I am not outgoing or confident in the slightest, but still consider myself an extrovert because I hate being alone and am happiest and most energized when I'm with others, and I'm never drained from social interactions. I know some introverts who are very outgoing. They just feel drained after a while of social interaction. I know it's not much, but for some reason, it really gets on my nerves. Story 36. 1. Keeping bathroom doors open. Close that goddamn door. For F******'s sake. People gossiping about others behind their back and revealing personal information about others. Respectability politics. Story 37. Consistent banter or joking. I grew up always being picked on, mocked, or made fun of by my family, friends, and friends. It made me feel really insecure and like I couldn't ever do anything right. The older I've gotten, the more I've noticed that most friend groups banter and criticize each other, and although I think some banter is okay and funny, I just can't stand seeing people talk badly to each other, even if I know they're joking. It just upsets me now, and I try to avoid people like that. Luckily, I have a very loving and kind friend group. Story 38. Open relationships. So prominent in my country. Sending out videos of you having sex with someone else, then thinking that would turn me on. I'm looking for love. I'm not trying to live in the health department parking lot. For people in the last year told me they caught either HIV or herpes while being in an open relationship. There's free online porn. Like, what the heck? And you have someone already. Story 39. Girls being able to say short guys are unattractive, which is something they cannot change, is completely accepted. But as soon as a man says they do not find overweight girls attractive, which is something they can change, everyone jumps down their throat. Story 40. Giving people lip service. Sometimes the truth sucks. Just say you don't want to go out or come to my barbecue or go shopping. Quit with the, I'll see what happens, or maybe we'll see what's going on. It irritates me. Story 41. People asking me the same question more than once, right after the first time I gave them an answer. I guess it's more of a pet peeve, but it still annoys me. Story 42. This is pretty obvious and simple, but alcohol. Some people can be fun to be around, but mostly it's just not pleasant. I've seen a drunk guy open a container of potato salad and just start shoveling it into his mouth with his hands. Later that night, he wet himself and fell asleep on a wooden room divider. That night cemented my hate for alcohol. Story 43. I've put in years to learn English as a second language, and then native speakers just butcher it like that. Story 44. Judging based on genetics, I mean things like height, hair, acne, and voice especially. I understand for some there are things you can do about it, but I got teased for having a weird voice as a kid, and it messed me up for years.